Bisi Adeyemi sat in Lagos traffic, scrolling through her phone without looking up. The heat was suffocating. Hawkers moved between cars like shadows. Then a boy appeared at her window, maybe 12 years old, balancing a wooden candy tray. She barely noticed him, until the sunlight caught something on his wrist, a silver bracelet, 3 cowrie shells dangling, tarnished but unmistakable. Her breath stopped. Her hands began to shake. That bracelet. She had bought it herself 15 years ago for her little brother on his 10th birthday, 3 weeks before the accident that took everything. She pressed the button. The window rolled down. "Where did you get that?" Her voice cracked. The boy stepped back, suspicious. "It was my father's. It's all I have left of him." Bisi's world tilted. The traffic noise faded. Father's bracelet. Who was this child? And how did he end up with something that belonged only to her family? Stay with us for this powerful story of loss, family, and redemption. Bisi Adeyemi had everything: a penthouse in Ikoyi, boutique hotels, a society wedding next month. She had built this life after losing her family 15 years ago, never looking back. Across Lagos, 12-year-old Akin woke up under Iko Bridge with no parents, no home, just a candy tray and his father's bracelet. That afternoon, their worlds collided in traffic. That morning, Bisi stood in her penthouse bathroom, applying lipstick with the precision of someone who had mastered control. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lagos stretched below like a kingdom she'd conquered. Her reflection showed a woman who had everything figured out: designer dress, perfect makeup, 3 successful boutique hotels, and a wedding to Damilola in 6 weeks. "Darling, the caterer needs final numbers by Friday," Damilola called from the bedroom, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, flashing the smile that had charmed half of Lagos society. "And my mother wants to know if we've settled on the venue for the traditional ceremony." Bisi nodded, pushing down the familiar tightness in her chest. This was her life now. Controlled, successful, safe. Across the city, Akin jolted awake under Iko Bridge as a truck rumbled overhead. The concrete was cold beneath him, and his stomach growled. He checked his wooden candy tray, still there, thank God. The older boys, the area boys, had tried to take it last week. He'd fought them off, but they'd be back. He touched the bracelet on his wrist, the only piece of his father he had left. 3 cowrie shells, tarnished silver. His father had worn it every day until the accident 5 years ago. Akin remembered his father's voice. "Your Auntie Bisi gave me this when I was small. Keep it safe." Bisi didn't think about her brother anymore, not if she could help it. But sometimes, when she wasn't careful, the memories came anyway. 15 years ago, she was 18, laughing in their family compound in Surulere. Her little brother Tunde, turning 10, jumping up and down when she gave him the bracelet. 3 cowrie shells, 1 for each of us, you, me, and our future. 3 weeks later, the phone call came. Truck collision on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Her parents died instantly. Tunde survived, but was badly injured. She'd sat by his hospital bed, holding his small hand, promising she'd take care of him. Then the scholarship to London came through. She'd left him with their uncle, promising to send money, to come back soon. But London became her escape. University, then business school, building a new life where grief couldn't reach her. When she finally returned to Lagos 5 years later, Tunde was gone. Their uncle said he'd moved away, cut contact. Bisi told herself it was for the best. Tunde had his own life now. She had hers. She'd built an empire to fill the emptiness. 3 hotels, a penthouse, a fiancé who looked perfect on paper. She'd perfected the art of moving forward without looking back. Until that afternoon in traffic, when a boy with her brother's bracelet shattered everything. "I'm so grateful you're here with me, my beautiful story family." If today's story has already pulled you in, show some love by clicking subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I love knowing where my family is. Tomorrow brings another emotional journey you absolutely cannot miss, so make sure you're subscribed and ready. The Lagos sun was merciless, turning Third Mainland Bridge into a gridlocked oven. Bisi sat in the back of her Mercedes, scrolling through emails about the charity gala, barely registering the hawkers moving between cars. Just another day in Lagos traffic. Then a boy appeared at her window, maybe 12 years old, balancing a wooden tray of candy with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. She glanced up briefly, ready to wave him away, when sunlight caught something on his wrist. A silver bracelet, 3 cowrie shells dangling from it, tarnished but unmistakable. Bisi's breath stopped. Her phone slipped from her hands. The world narrowed to just that bracelet, the one she'd bought herself 15 years ago at her artisan shop in Surulere. Her hands began to shake. "Wait!" she called out, fumbling for the window button. The glass rolled down. The boy stepped closer, wary. Up close, she could see how thin he was, how his clothes hung loose, how his eyes held the kind of wariness that came from surviving alone. "Where did you get that?" Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. She pointed at the bracelet with trembling fingers. The boy's hand moved protectively to his wrist, covering it. "Don't touch it." His voice was defensive, afraid. "This is my daddy's bracelet. Daddy's bracelet." The words hit her like a punch to the chest. Her vision blurred. The traffic noise faded to a distant hum. "Your daddy's," she whispered. What was your father's name?" But the boy was already backing away, suspicion hardening his features. "Why you dey ask me? I know you." He turned and disappeared into the maze of cars, moving with the agility of someone who knew how to vanish. "Wait, please." Bisi tried to open the car door, but her driver stopped her. "Ma, it's not safe. You'll get hit." Traffic began moving. The boy was gone, but those words echoed in Bisi's head. My daddy's bracelet. Back at her office, Bisi sat at her desk, staring at nothing. Ada knocked twice before she responded. "Ma, are you all right? You missed the conference call with the hotel suppliers." "That bracelet," Bisi said, her voice distant. "It was Tunde's, I'm certain." She pulled up old family photos on her phone. Tunde at 10, grinning at the camera. The bracelet, bright and new on his wrist. The exact same bracelet. 3 cowrie shells. Silver clasp. "Ada, that boy said it was his father's." Bisi looked up, her eyes red. If that bracelet was Tunde's, and that boy's father had it. "Ma," Ada's voice was gentle, careful. "Many people have similar jewelry. You can buy these at any market. Not like this. Custom made. 3 cowrie shells specifically." Bisi stood abruptly, pulling open her desk drawer. Old documents spilled out, papers she'd kept but never looked at. Birth certificates. Hospital records. Her parents' death certificates. There, Tunde's hospital discharge papers from 15 years ago. Released to Uncle Biodun's care. Address in Mushin. "I need to know what happened to Tunde after I left," Bisi said quietly. "I need to know if he had a child." The next morning, ignoring Damilola's calls about wedding details, Bisi drove to Mushin. The neighborhood was crowded, loud, a world away from Ikoyi. She found the compound paint peeling, gate rusted. Uncle Biodun opened the door. His face hardened when he saw her. "Bisi, after all these years, where is Tunde?" No pleasantries, no pretense. His jaw tightened. "Tunde is dead. 5 years now. Motorcycle accident." The ground seemed to tilt. "Dead? Why didn't anyone tell me? You were in London building your big life." The bitterness in his voice was sharp. "You never asked about him, never came back. Why would we tell you?" Bisi gripped the doorframe. Did he have a child?" Uncle Biodun looked away, shame crossing his face. "He fell in love with a girl from here. Got her pregnant. She died in childbirth." He paused. "The boy, some relatives took him. For the accident settlement money. Where is the boy now?" "The money ran out. He shrugged. "I don't know where he is. I don't know what happened to him." "You don't know?" Fury rose in Bisi's chest. "He's your nephew, Tunde's son. And where were you?" Uncle Biodun shot back. "Where were you when your brother needed you, when he was struggling here while you lived large abroad?" The accusation hit home because it was true. Bisi had left, had built her new life, had never looked back. But as she walked back to her car, one thing was certain. Tunde had a son who was somewhere in Lagos with his father's bracelet, selling candy in traffic to survive. She was going to find him. Akin woke before dawn, his internal clock precise from years of necessity. He counted his money carefully, 240 naira from yesterday. Not enough. He needed at least 500 to buy more candy from the wholesaler in Oshodi. He touched the bracelet on his wrist, a habit that steadied him, then lifted his wooden tray and headed toward the morning traffic. By noon, he'd made 300 naira when Tayo and his boys appeared. Tayo was 17, with scars on his knuckles and eyes that had seen too much. "Akin, my guy, you dey sell for our territory. You know the rules." Akin's grip tightened on his tray. "I don't pay you last week." "That was last week. This is this week." Tayo stepped closer, his boys flanking him. "Give us half of wetin you make today, or we go collect everything." Akin knew better than to fight. He handed over 150 naira, watching his profit disappear. Tayo counted it slowly, then smiled. "Smart boy. Keep being smart." When he was 7, Akin had lived in a house. Not a nice house, but it had walls and a roof. His father's cousins had taken him in after his mother died giving birth to him. At first, they'd been kind. Then, the whispers started. He remembered lying on a mat in the corridor, pretending to sleep while they talked in the next room. "The boy eats too much. That money from the accident settlement is almost gone. How long must we keep feeding him? Just a few more months. When it's finished, we'll see." 3 months later, they took him to Balagun market. "Wait here, Akin. We're coming back." But the sun set, and they didn't return. Night fell, and the market emptied. A security guard found him crying by a closed shop. "Your people are not coming back, small boy." That first night alone, he'd wanted to die. But an older girl named Patience found him shivering behind a dumpster. "You're new," she said matter-of-factly. "Come, I'll show you where we sleep." She introduced him to other street children who taught him the rules. Trust no one, depend on no one, keep moving, stay alert, protect what's yours. 5 years later, those rules had kept him alive. Meanwhile, Bisi sat in her office with a private investigator across from her desk. "I need you to find a boy, about 12 years old. Sells candy in traffic. He was wearing a silver bracelet with 3 cowrie shells." The investigator nodded, taking notes. "Any other details?" "His father was named Tunde Adeyemi. He died 5 years ago. The boy," she paused. "The boy is my nephew." That evening, Damilola found her staring at her laptop, scrolling through images of street children. "Bisi, what is this? You've been distracted for days. Why are you obsessing over some street child?" She looked up at him, exhausted. "Because he's not just some street child, he's family." "Family?" Damilola's voice rose. "You haven't seen this boy in years, if it's even him. Why are you doing this now? We have a wedding to plan, important people to meet. This is not the time for what? For caring?" The words came out sharper than she intended. Damilola stared at her like she'd become a stranger. Maybe she had. Bisi couldn't explain it, even to herself. But somewhere in Lagos, a boy with her brother's bracelet was sleeping on concrete, and she couldn't rest until she found him. The investigator's report came 3 days later. Boy matching description spotted regularly in the Oshodi area. Sells candy near the bridge during peak traffic hours. Goes by the name Akin. Bisi's hands trembled as she read the words. Akin. Her brother's son had a name. "Ma, please let me come with you," Ada insisted when Bisi announced she was going to Oshodi. "It's not safe alone." They drove through the chaos of Oshodi buses honking, conductors shouting, hawkers weaving between vehicles like water through rocks. Bisi's Mercedes felt obscene here, drawing stares. She rolled down her window, calling out to hawkers, "Do you know a boy named Akin? Sells candy?" Most ignored her. One woman pointed toward the bridge. "That small boy way day wear bracelet? Him day there for afternoon." Bisi's heart raced as they inched through traffic toward the bridge. And then she saw him, the same boy from before, moving confidently between cars with his wooden tray. The bracelet caught the sunlight. Her breath caught. She called out, "Boy, please wait." Akin turned, recognition flickering across his face when he saw the Mercedes. He approached cautiously. "I want to buy all your candy," Bisi said quickly. "Everything on your tray." Akin's eyes narrowed. "Why? Wetin you want?" "Just your candy. How much?" 2,000 naira. He named a price triple what the candy was worth, testing her. "Done." Bisi pulled out the money without hesitation. Akin stared at the bills, suspicion hardening his features. Rich people didn't just give money away. They always wanted something. "Why you dey follow me? Wetin be your own?" Bisi's voice dropped, vulnerable. "Your father's name?" Was it Tunde? The question hit Akin like a slap. His face went pale, then flushed with anger. How you know my papa name? Who send you? Fear crept into his voice. I don't know you. Leave me alone. He shoved the money back at her and ran, disappearing into the maze of traffic with the agility of someone who'd spent years learning escape routes. Wait! Bisi tried to follow, but Ada grabbed her arm. Ma, it's too dangerous. You'll get hit by a car. Bisi stood in the middle of the road, watching the boy vanish, feeling something crack open in her chest. The next day, she came back. And the day after that. She didn't approach him, just parked in traffic near his spot, sitting there with the window down. Sometimes she brought food, meat, pies, bottles of water, and left them where he could see them. He never took them. Other hawkers noticed. A woman selling oranges leaned into Akin's space one afternoon. That rich woman Day come here every day. She Day look for you. Wettin you do? I no do anything, Akin muttered, but his hand moved unconsciously to the bracelet. Be careful, small boy. Rich people no Day just give free money. They always want something. But Bisi kept coming, day after day, sitting in traffic that went nowhere, watching a boy who wouldn't let her close. The traffic became their meeting ground, the only space where their worlds could touch without colliding. And slowly, against every instinct he'd developed, Akin began to wonder, what if this woman was telling the truth? What if she really knew his father? The bracelet felt heavier on his wrist with each passing day. The rains came hard that week, turning Lagos into a swimming pool. Akin woke shivering under the bridge, his body burning despite the cold. Malaria. He recognized the signs, the fever, the aches, the way the world seemed to tilt. But he couldn't afford to rest. Rest meant no money. No money meant no food. By afternoon, he was swaying on his feet in traffic, barely able to hold his tray steady. Colors blurred together. Voices sounded far away. Then the Mercedes appeared, and Bisi's face filled his vision. Ada, call the hospital. Now. She was out of the car before traffic moved, catching Akin as he stumbled. No, no, leave me. His voice was weak, confused. I'm taking you to a doctor. Panic cut through the fever. Are you selling me? I hear about people die steal children. He tried to pull away, but his legs wouldn't work. Bisi's voice broke. I'm not stealing you. I think you're my nephew. My brother Tunde's son. Tears streamed down her face. Please, just let me help you. In the car, she showed him photos on her phone, a young man with kind eyes wearing the same bracelet. This was my brother. Your father, Tunde. Akin stared at the picture through the fever. The face was familiar, like something from a dream he'd almost forgotten. At the private hospital, Akin couldn't process what was happening. Clean white sheets. Medicine that didn't taste like bitter herbs. A nurse who smiled at him. Real food, rice, chicken, mango juice. He ate like someone who might never eat again, then immediately felt ashamed. Slowly, Bisi said gently, there's more. You don't have to rush. That night, after the IV had brought his fever down, they talked. Akin's memories of his father were fragments, a voice singing, strong hands lifting him, stories told in the dark. He talk about his sister, Akin whispered. Say she travel, go abroad, go study. Say she go, come back one day. His eyes met Bisi's. You be that sister? Yes. Her voice was barely audible. I'm so sorry I didn't come back sooner. The doctor arranged a DNA test. Results will take a few days. Those days became a strange suspension of reality. Bisi visited every afternoon, bringing food Akin had never tasted. Shawarma, ice cream, chocolate. She told him stories about Tunde, how he loved football, how he could make anyone laugh, how he'd worn that bracelet every single day after she gave it to him. On the fourth day, Akin smiled for the first time. A small, cautious thing when Bisi brought him a comic book. My papa used to read me stories, he said softly. I know, Bisi replied, her heart breaking and healing at once. He loved stories. But outside the hospital walls, Damilola's patience was wearing thin. You've been at that hospital every day for a week, he complained over the phone. My mother called. She heard rumors you're involving yourself with street people. Bisi, this is embarrassing. What will people think? I don't care what people think. Well, I do. We have a reputation to maintain. My family has standards. Your family has standards? Bisi's voice went cold. This boy might be my blood, Damilola. My brother's child. Might be. You don't even know for sure yet, and you're already—" He caught himself, but not before she heard it. The disdain, the judgment. Already what? Nothing, just think about what you're doing. Think about us. But as Bisi hung up and returned to Akin's hospital room, watching him sleep peacefully for perhaps the first time in years, she realized she was thinking about them. Just not the us Damilola meant. The doctor's voice was steady, but Bisi heard nothing after the first sentence. The DNA test confirms 99.9% probability of familial relationship. He's your nephew. She sat down hard, the room spinning. Grief and joy crashed into each other, grief for the years lost, for Tunde, for this child who'd survived alone, joy that she'd found him, that he was real, that she hadn't been too late. Akin watched her carefully from the hospital bed, guarded even now. Wet in the paper, say. It says your family. Her voice broke. It says you're my brother's son. It says you're mine. The lawyer's office felt cold and formal. Custody, guardianship, legal rights, words that tried to contain something bigger than law. The lawyer explained the process, the paperwork, the timeline. Bisi signed everything. Later, in the hospital room, she asked the question that terrified her. Would you like to come live with me? Akin's eyes narrowed, that old suspicion rising. For how long? Until you tire of me? Until the money finish? His voice was hard, protecting himself from hope. Family doesn't get tired of family, Bisi said, kneeling so they were eye level. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Moving day felt surreal. Akin's worldly possessions fit in one small bag, 3 shirts, 2 shorts, the wooden candy tray he couldn't bring himself to throw away, and the bracelet on his wrist. That was 12 years of life. When they entered the Ikoyi penthouse, Akin froze in the doorway. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos, marble floors. Furniture that looked like it belonged in magazines. People actually live like this. His voice was barely a whisper. You live like this now, Bisi said gently. That night, she showed him his room bigger than anywhere he'd ever slept. A bed with soft sheets, a closet, a bathroom just for him. After she said goodnight, she heard movement. Opening the door quietly, she found him curled on the floor beside the bed, the thin blanket from the hospital wrapped around him. Her heart shattered. In the morning, she found bread hidden under his pillow, in his closet, behind books on the shelf. He'd hoarded half of last night's dinner, unable to believe there would be breakfast. There's always going to be food, Akin, she said softly. You don't have to save it. He looked ashamed. I forget sometimes. On the street, if you know keep food, you go hungry tomorrow. Ada arrived to help with shopping. At the mall, Akin touched the new clothes like they might disappear. These ones cost too much. My old shirt's still good. You deserve new things, Ada said kindly. I no deserve anything, he muttered. I just die lucky. That evening, Damilola came for dinner the first time, meeting Akin properly. The tension was thick enough to cut. Damilola's smile was polite but cold, his handshake with Akin brief. Throughout dinner, he spoke to Bisi as if the boy wasn't there. So when will things get back to normal? Damilola asked, cutting his steak with precise movements. Akin kept his head down, eating slowly, carefully, using the fork the way Bisi had shown him. This is normal now, Bisi replied evenly. Damilola's jaw tightened. We need to talk, privately. Later, Akin lay on the floor of his room, staring at the ceiling. He could hear them arguing in the next room, voices rising, his name mentioned, the word mistake. He touched the bracelet. His father's voice echoed in memory. Your auntie come back one day. She'd come back. But Akin didn't know if that was enough to make him belong in a world this different from everything he'd ever known. Akin didn't sleep that first night. He lay on the floor, listening to Damilola's voice through the walls. Mistake. That word echoed. By morning, he'd built his walls back up, brick by brick. When Bisi came to wake him, he was polite, distant. The warmth from the hospital was gone. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, ma. The formal address stung her. School enrollment came next. The private school principal smiled uncertainly while discussing Akin's situation, years behind in formal education, gaps in literacy, no records. We'll try primary 5, see how he adjusts. Akin said nothing. Adjustment meant fitting into a world that didn't want him. He knew how this story ended. On his first day, The other students stared. Their crisp uniforms, fluid English, easy confidence, everything screamed that he didn't belong. During break, a boy named Kunle pointed. "That's the street boy. My driver said he used to beg in traffic." "I wasn't begging, I was selling." Akin's voice was flat. "Same thing," Kunle laughed. "Street rat." Akin's fist connected with Kunle's jaw, not because of the insult he'd heard worse, but because of everything. The argument, Damilola's cold handshake, Mrs. Coca's poisoned smiles he knew were coming, the word mistake. Teachers pulled them apart. Bisi was called. The principal recommended therapy, anger management issues. The therapist's office smelled like lavender. Dr. Okonkwo smiled warmly. "Tell me about your feelings, Akin." "I know get feelings. Everyone has feelings." "Not me." He crossed his arms. "If you didn't have feelings, they couldn't hurt you." He'd learned that years ago. But the feelings were there, building like storm clouds. 2 weeks later, Bisi insisted he come to a wedding planning dinner. "You're part of this family. You should be there." Akin knew better. The restaurant in Victoria Island had crystal chandeliers and women in designer dresses. Every eye tracked him when they entered. The whispers started immediately. Damilola's mother, Mrs. Coca, smiled with poisoned sweetness. "How progressive, dear. Taking in charity cases right before your wedding. So unusual." "Akin is family, not charity," Bisi said tightly. "Of course." Mrs. Coca's eyes swept over him, though one wonders what people will say. Akin excused himself to the bathroom. In the hallway, he heard them, Damilola and Bisi, voices rising. "He's a disruption. This isn't what I signed up for. He's a child who needs... You're making us a spectacle. Do you know what people are saying? Choose, Bisi. Him or me. Our future or your guilt project." Akin didn't wait to hear more. He walked out through the back exit. That night, Bisi found his room empty. She drove through Lagos in darkness, checking the bridge, the old spots. At dawn, she found him there, wearing his old clothes, the wooden candy tray beside him. "Akin, I don't go back where I belong." His voice was flat. "You get your life, your man, your wedding. I no fit spoil am." "You're not spoiling anything." Bisi sat on the concrete beside him. "That your man don't choose. Everybody don't choose. Even that first night, I hear am mistake." He looked at her. "You bring me come your house, but I never belong there. I never go belong. So, why we die pretend?" The sun rose over Lagos. Bisi realized they'd reached the breaking point. Either she proved family meant more than everything else, or she lost him to the belief that he'd never belonged in the first place. "You think I care what those people say?" she asked. "You think their opinions matter more than you?" "Yes," Akin said quietly, "because you be like them. When you tire of me, I go come back here. So why not just stay now?" "Come home," Bisi said softly. "Please, let me prove you wrong." Akin looked at the wooden candy tray, then at her face. Finally, he nodded. But the trust in his eyes was fragile as glass. They drove back to Ikoyi in silence. When they arrived, Damilola was waiting in the living room, his face tight with anger. "Where have you been? I've been calling all night." "Akin needed me," Bisi said simply. "Akin needs you. Akin always needs you." Damilola's voice rose. "What about what I need? What about us? Can we talk about this later?" Bisi gestured toward Akin, who stood frozen in the doorway. "No, we talk about it now." Damilola turned to Akin. "Do you see what you're doing? You're tearing us apart. You don't belong here. You never will." "Damilola!" Bisi's voice was sharp, but Akin was already moving, backing toward the door. "I go leave. Make una no fight because of me." "Akin, wait!" Bisi reached for him, but he was already running. That was 2 days ago. Now Bisi sat in her car outside another shelter, her voice hoarse from calling his name. The police had his description. Private search teams combed the streets. She'd checked hospitals, street corners, every place she could think of. 48 hours of terror. Her phone rang. "Damilola, again." "Maybe this is for the best," he said when she answered. "He was never going to fit into our world, Bisi. You tried. Now we can move on." "Fit into our world?" Rage exploded in her chest. "You mean we were never going to fit? You and me? What are you saying? You're embarrassed by him, by me for choosing him. You don't want a family, Damilola. You want an image. A perfect picture for your perfect life. Her voice cracked. That's not love. She hung up. Ada called 20 minutes later. Ma, I've been thinking. You said Akin's father died in an accident 5 years ago. Do you know where? Bisi's heart stopped. Uncle Biodun mentioned a motorcycle accident. Somewhere on the mainland. She pulled up the old news articles she'd searched weeks ago. There, a memorial site where locals left flowers for accident victims. Alacuco. She drove like Lagos traffic laws didn't exist. The memorial site was a small roadside shrine, flowers, candles, faded photographs. And there, sitting on the ground with his back against the concrete wall, was Akin. He was clutching the bracelet, talking to the air. I tried, Papa. I try to be good. I try to fit. But I no belong anywhere. You tell me, Auntie, go, come back. And she come. But she get her own life. Big house. Big man way no want me there. His voice broke. Maybe I suppose just stay for street. At least there, I know wetin to expect. Akin. Bisi's voice was soft. He looked up, tears on his face, then quickly wiped them away. You find me. I'll always find you. She sat beside him, not touching, just present. You said everyone leaves eventually, that it's better if you leave first. He nodded. I've been running too, Bisi said quietly. From guilt, from grief, from the family I failed to protect. She looked at the memorial. Your father was my baby brother, my responsibility. I went abroad to build a life, and I lost him. I wasn't there when he needed me. I wasn't there when he died. I wasn't there when you were born. Her voice broke. I can't lose you too, Akin. I won't. But your man is not my family. You are. She turned to face him. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. No matter how hard you push, no matter how many times you run, I'm not leaving. Akin's walls finally crumbled. I don't tire to fight, he whispered. Then stop fighting. Let me love you. They cried together as the sun set over Lagos, two people who'd lost everything finally finding each other. When they returned home, Damilola was waiting with packed bags. I meant what I said. Choose. Bisi looked at Akin, then back at Damilola. I choose family. Real family. Damilola left without another word. The door closed, and for the first time in weeks, Bisi felt like she could breathe. 3 months later, Bisi stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting her gown for the charity gala, the annual event at her flagship hotel, the one that always attracted Lagos high society. This year felt different. Auntie Bisi, I day ready. Akin appeared in the doorway, elegant in his new suit. The bracelet still gleamed on his wrist, polished now but still the same. You look handsome, she said, her heart swelling. I day nervous, he admitted. All those people. I know, but you're not alone. We're in this together. They arrived at the hotel together. The grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers and designer gowns. Conversations paused as they entered. Bisi felt the stares, heard the whispers beginning. She held her head high and kept Akin's hand in hers. Mrs. Coker stood near the champagne fountain, her expression sour. Others watched with curiosity. A few faces showed genuine warmth. Ada, waving from across the room. Mr. Adebayo, her business partner, nodding with respect. Bisi took the microphone during the welcome speech. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I want to introduce someone very important to me. She gestured to Akin. This is my nephew, Akin Bolaji, my brother's son, my family. The room held its breath. Then scattered applause began, some enthusiastic, some polite, some absent entirely. Bisi didn't care. She was done performing for people who valued image over humanity. The weeks that followed brought slow, steady healing. In Dr. Okonkwo's office, Akin finally started talking about his father, about the relatives who abandoned him, about the fear that still woke him some nights. But Auntie Bisi day there now, he told the therapist. She no-go leave. At school, things improved. A boy named Chidi invited Akin to play football during break. His math teacher noticed his quick mind, giving him extra challenges. He still struggled with reading, but he was catching up. On Saturdays, Akin went back to the bridge not to sell, but to talk to other street kids. He brought food, shared his story, gave hope. Person fit changed their story, he told a small girl clutching candy. I be proof. Family dinners became routine. Ada joined them often, bringing laughter. Akin slept in his bed now. The hoarding stopped. When Bisi checked his room, there was no bread hidden away. Just schoolbooks and the wooden candy tray he'd kept as a reminder. The courthouse was quiet on a Tuesday morning. The judge looked down at them kindly. "Akin Bolaji, do you understand what this adoption means?" Akin stood straight, his voice clear. "Yes, sir. It means I get family. It means I day home." The judge smiled. "Indeed it does. Congratulations." Bisi signed the papers with shaking hands. Legal now. Permanent. He was hers, and she was his. That evening, in his room, Akin carefully placed the bracelet in a small memory box alongside his father's photograph. He didn't need to wear it anymore. Proof of family wasn't something you carried on your wrist. It was something you felt in your bones. New photos lined his desk now. Him and Bisi at the beach. Him and Ada baking. Him with his new school friends. A life being built, one moment at a time. "Auntie Bisi," he called down the hall, his voice bright and easy. "I finish my homework. Auntie Bisi." The title that meant everything, not Ma, with distance, but Auntie, with love. "Coming," she called back, smiling. Outside the window, Lagos spread beneath them. The sun set over the city, painting the sky orange and gold. Traffic flowed on Third Mainland Bridge, endless and chaotic. Cars filled with people going home. Family isn't always blood, and blood isn't always family. Sometimes, family is the one who stops their car, who sees you when others look away, who chooses to stay when leaving would be easier. Sometimes, the traffic that traps us becomes the path that brings us home. And sometimes, home is exactly where you're meant to be. You made it to the end, thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you loved this story, the next one is going to blow your mind. I'm talking more twists, more emotion, more of everything that keeps you hooked. Click on that image on your screen right now and jump straight into the next tale. You're going to love it.